Hello everybody, this is a ride on my V-Star 250 from Nancy Green Lake to Roslyn, BC over the Strawberry Pass. On the hill climb I will try to bring you an idea of what power I have in 5th gear with my sprocket configuration. And then on the other side of the pass I will go into some simple modifications I've made on my bike. We begin here with a brief panoramic view of Nancy Green Lake. A little bit of prelogue on this adventure is that I'm 6 foot 1.5 inches tall and weigh around 200 pounds. The grade on this hill maxes out at around 6%. This is a calculated grade ratio I made with Google Earth on distance and elevation. Here we have another rider who's taking in the last warm days of fall riding. The camera I used on this little excursion was a Contour Plus 2. I find it a good little camera, compact. You can stick it on your helmet, stick it on your bike. It works really well. It's a little overexposed here. I didn't change any camera settings and the sun was a bit bright. As I'm traveling along here, I'll be in 5th gear. Hopefully I can give you the feel of what it's like in 5th gear on this long, slow incline. Grade on this highway along here is about 4 or 5%, and there'll be a short, steeper part at about 6%. At this point I'm about 100 kilometers per hour, but the road kind of varies along here, so I'll be up and down, dropping down to about 80 kilometers per hour on the steeper sections. As I go along here, the incline varies about 4.5 to 5%, and my speed varies along with the inclines between 80 kilometers per hour and 95 kilometers per hour in this area. Remember here, I'm not changing gears, I'm going to stay in 5th gear for a while here. On my bike I have a 17-tooth drive sprocket and a 42-tooth driven sprocket. It originally came stock with a 16-tooth drive sprocket and a 45-tooth driven sprocket. As I pass this corner ahead, the highway becomes a 6% grade, which you will see I'll slow down quite a bit more. As I go up the steeper incline, the motorcycle is slowing down. You may be able to even hear it slowing down. And I'm dropping down probably even below about 80 kilometers per hour before I get up to this viewpoint here. Okay, well, I'll make some people happy behind me and turning off in this viewpoint for a minute and let them all go by. That gives you a brief idea of what it's like at 5th gear, pushing an incline up this fairly long, steep grade. If it's a short grade, you probably keep your power up, but on this long grade, its power just gradually deteriorates. Ahead here the grade is about the same, fairly steep, but I will be changing down to 4th gear just to show you the power band. Remember, this is only a 250, so it takes a little time to get back up to 100 kilometers per hour. I am at 100 kilometers per hour along here, or 60 miles per hour, just before this corner, still climbing to the top of the pass. If you're listening closely there, you could hear me shift 4th to 5th. As you can see, it takes a little bit of time to get your RPM up to get into 5th on these long, steep inclines. In a moment you'll see a little sign on the right there, and that will be the summit of Strawberry Pass. Hello everybody, my last video contained a review of my Yamaha V-Star 250. This video contains some modifications I've made for safety, convenience, and looks. Firstly, for safety I put on a flasher on the brake light. I purchased the flasher off of eBay and was simple to splice into the existing wire harness. How it works is when I apply my brake, it will flash 5 times, then go to a steady state on. I have noticed that after I put the flasher on, other drivers stay farther back when following. To be even more visual, I am currently installing a second bright LED brake light. The reason for this is that when I follow my wife's V-Star, I find her brake light doesn't really grab my attention. I especially want to know that my light is seen by the traffic behind me. As I stated in my previous video, the headlight is just adequate. It's really bright enough, especially on rainy days. I found 2 bullet-shaped little chrome driving lights at Canadian Tire that I installed on the bike, which helps out quite a bit actually. These came with halogen bulbs, but the problem I found with them is that the halogens were sucking up way too much power for what my battery could put out. Each halogen light was 35 watts. Of course my headlight's about 55 watts, I believe. So combining those and all the other lights on my bike, it put a very big drain on my battery. Especially if I had the engine shut off, the battery wouldn't last very long at all, it'd go flat. I found some LEDs that would replace the bulbs, these halogen bulbs, and I replaced them. So I went from the 35 watt down to a 5 watt, which puts great relief on my battery and my whole electrical system. And it puts out about the same illumination. So it's really quite good now. On my last video, I spoke about my mirrors and how I thought they were in too tight around the body to see around my body. I found some mirror extenders and installed them, and they help greatly. They just extend enough that I can see better around me, but at the same time, when I'm driving at night, the lights from behind don't blind me, as I can still just sort of partially block the mirrors with my body. It was actually a pretty good install for that one. On my last review, I talked about my horn not being very loud. I purchased an air horn off of eBay, and this one is much louder. A couple of notes on this though, I had to use larger wire. I tried to use number 14 gauge, but it didn't work. It wasn't getting the proper current to the unit. I had to install some number 12 wire in order to get this air horn to work. Also, that this air horn is not chrome, it was just a black unit. You can get chrome units, but they're about double the price. But it certainly helps, and when you're somewhere and you just want to make yourself known, it's loud. My sixth install was a highway bar that is really just extra chrome. The bar is sort of small, so I don't think it affords much help if the bike falls over. It doesn't extend out very far. It looks pretty good though, it adds a little extra chrome. My next install was a sissy bar and a rear rack. Nice place to put things like backpack or something that needs a flatter surface to tie to. I use my bike for commuting a lot, so it is really great that I can have a place to put my pack that I take to work every day. The sissy bar with a pad is really great. It's a little added security if a person is aboard, and of course the whole thing's a little more chrome. For some extra storage, I installed some saddlebags. They're great for little extra things, or whatever you need, going around town or on short trips. Here's the bracket that holds the saddlebags on. It's just two extender brackets joined at the top and just made stiff to go to the bottom. I've put a sissy bar bag on my seat. It's very great for commuting. I use it for putting a lunch in. It just goes on with a large Velcro strap that goes on quite easily, and it is quite secure. When I did modifications of the saddlebags, I had to modify my rear signal lights. As you can see here, I've just put a small piece of metal and bent it at right angles at the top of the license plate to fit on quite well. My next upgrade was changing my drive sprockets, as I found the gearing was a bit low. It is good when you first begin to ride a motorcycle, but after a while I like to get up to highway speed a little quicker with less shifting in between. I replaced the stock 16 tooth drive and 45 tooth driven for a 17 tooth drive and 42 tooth driven. This has helped in a couple of areas. One of the main advantages, it has taken almost all the vibration away at 80 kilometers per hour and pushed it up near the end of the power band. And also the vibration seems to be less even at the higher end. Along with that, I found that first is more usable as it has spread out the gearing ratio, allowing first gear to move the bike at a higher speed with the same RPM. There are a couple of articles on the net about sprocket change and how many have gone to the 38 tooth driven. But be aware if your gearing is too high and you live in the mountainous areas, you may not have enough power to keep your speed up on the highway hills. So I went to the 40 tooth driven, which was kind of a happy medium for me as I live in the mountains, and it seems to work pretty good for the hills. Another modification was installing a tachometer. With this I can now monitor where I'm at with RPM. This is especially good on the highway where I need to plan my gearing when passing or going up a long incline piece of highway for maximum power. The tach will also get me used to the engine sounds, at different speeds, so I will learn without looking what the approximate RPM of the engine is. I mounted the tack under the handlebar, as that was the only good place to put it, so it didn't clutter up the short handlebars. Number 11 on my list of mods was a muffler modification. I did this by drilling 3 3/8 holes in the rear baffle plates of each muffler. This is an inexpensive way to allow for a little more sound, a little different sound and a touch more power. Some may wonder why I didn't remove more internals like the baffle, but this leads to a number of other required changes and issues. Removing of too many parts actually leads to less power, as there is little back pressure for the engine to work with. I've seen this proven by a number of motorcycle dyno examples on the net. Also, there would be the need to rejet the carburetor, which I would think leads to less gas mileage. Though I like a little more sound out of my motorcycle, I am not one for loud exhausts. It annoys me and my neighbor. And another change I would have to make is my air intake to allow the engine to breathe properly. So just a few simple holes helps out here. My ideal modification would be to upgrade to the Jardine /cut rumblers for a touch more power and to get the right type of sound note that I want out of the exhaust. My next mod was the windshield, which there isn't a whole lot to say about it. It's great in deflecting rain, bugs, wind, and it was a relatively easy install. Of course, nothing ever fits perfectly, but it fit pretty well, and without much fiddling with the brackets, it went on pretty good. Another modification I did was that on my wife's V-Star 250, I installed floorboards, as she found her feet getting sore by the angle they were on the foot pegs. But this is really a matter of preference, as it may or may not make foot positioning better for others. A few little small items that I added for convenience one was a handlebar clock. I'm amazed at how many times I wonder what time it is, as I'm enjoying the ride and not paying attention to the time slipping by. Another one was a handlebar thermometer. This is a nice convenience for those trips on hot days. By this I can decide whether I want to stop in a hot area or find a cooler location to take a break. My latest modification is I added an AirHawk seat cushion. This is a variable fill air seat cushion that works really well. Adjusted with just the right amount of air, it keeps you riding a lot farther without your butt getting uncomfortable. I used it in my car on a 500-kilometer trip I did recently and had no issues with the painful butt like I normally get. Well, that about wraps up my modifications I've done so far. These are fairly inexpensive upgrades that I did, and I hope this helps in customizing your bike what you need. One thing to remember though, as you add stuff, this is only a 250 engine, so everything you add adds a little more weight, and that becomes a little less power that you can use. Enjoy!